What's going on, YouTube? So the Civic, of course, has long been one of the best-selling sedans, and today we're spending time with the best-selling version. That's right, we're with the refreshed 2025 Civic in its most popular trim level called Sport. So, is this the ideal combination of design, features, and affordability? Well, let's go ahead and find out. Alright, so let's get things started here under the hood. Now, we previously reviewed the hybrid model, but now we're talking about the standard engine with this Sport trim level. This is a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine. It's been updated for 2025. It now has 150 horsepower, which is actually a little less than last year, but Honda said they did this to improve the fuel economy, which is now 34 miles per gallon combined with this model. And for our transmission, we have a CVT.
Now, of course, we'll be testing that out later when we take this Civic on a test drive. We'll also be getting things like our signature sound level reading on this affordable Sport trim level. And after that, we'll be discussing resale value and reliability.
But first, we're going to close up the hood because a big part of why people are so attracted to the Sport trim level is the design. Now, to start off here, I do want to talk a little bit about the trim. So they have modified the trim levels offered for 2025. We're down to just 4 for the sedan model. You have LX, the Sport, which is what we have today, the Sport Hybrid, and then the Sport Touring Hybrid. And just to be clear, the Sport and the Sport Hybrid, while they do share the same name, they actually have different equipment, so they're not considered the same trim. We're talking about that affordable standard Sport model. Now, what do you get? Well, thankfully, Honda doesn't change much from the top-end model. You've got the slightly updated fascia for 2025, both the upper and the lower face. The headlights themselves are also still very premium on this model. You have the nice full LED headlights, plus your LED daytime running light and turn signal indicator. Now, as we walk around to the back of the Civic, obviously not any huge changes for 2025.
There are some changes, though, because this is a refresh after all, and let's go ahead and dive into those. Now, here on the Sport trim level, no spoiler or anything, so keep that in mind. However, when it comes to our taillights, even though they're mostly the same shape as they were before, they have been darkened this year. And Drew went ahead and hopped inside so we can see if all the elements are LED. We have an LED brake light portion, incandescent reverse light, and incandescent turn signal indicator. So 1 out of 3 elements are LED, even on this more affordable trim level. As we drop down to this lower area, I'm happy to tell you this is all going to be finished in a body color. I'm also happy to tell you here on the Sport model, we have an exhaust outlet. That's something that was not on the Sport Touring model that we did earlier this year.
Now, another big reason people choose the Sport trim level is because you get upgraded to these 18-inch alloy wheels. As you can see, really nice design on this. It's a full gloss black finish. It looks very similar to what you get on the fully loaded model. And of course, this is obviously a much more affordable price tag and a big improvement over the hubcaps you get on the LX. Another thing that's a big improvement over the LX trim level is the fact that you have the gloss black finish on the mirrors. You also have heating and blind spot monitoring. Now, compared to the 2024 model year, the blind spot monitoring is a new standard feature for 2025.
Now, here at the side, the Civic sedan is about 184 inches long, and if you're wondering why I clarified that this is the sedan, it's because there actually is a hatchback version of the Civic available as well. Now, when it comes to your safety systems, I'm happy to tell you that Honda is including every single one of them as standard equipment on every trim level, so yes, that does include this Sport trim level as well. But guys, let's go ahead and dive into what you're going to get on the inside. But first, if you're new here, we're brothers, and we've been reviewing cars since we were 12
and 16. We may be young, but we love cars.
And we'd love for you to subscribe to be a part of our Car Confections family. Let's learn a lot, have some fun with all the latest cars.
All right, now let's go ahead and check out the interior. First, let's take a look at the key fob. We do have a smart entry system with remote start built in. Sport trim level is the trim level where that becomes a standard feature. And that means you can just grab behind the door handle and that will unlock the door for you. All right, so let's check out the interior. Just like with the exterior, our 2025 refresh updates are going to be kind of more on the subtle side of things. But let's first talk about our seats. So with the sport trim level, this is going to get you a mid-level seat as well. So you have mostly cloth seat through the center section, but it is going to be leatherette trimmed. So that's different, of course, than what you get in the LX, which is a full cloth seat. I like the stitching details on board. I think it looks pretty nice overall. Just be aware that the seats themselves are going to be manual adjusting. You can't get a power seat unless you get that fully loaded sport touring model. But let's go ahead and climb inside. And closing up the door, we do get the little animation and chime. Let's look at the rest of the cabin material. So of course there are going to be some differences from the fully loaded model we've shown on the channel before. One of those differences begins right here. We're going to have a cloth insert for our arm to rest on in the door trim, as well as above it. We have got a kind of plain black trim in the center section, and this is also going to be hard touch on the upper part. However, the dashboard will remain a soft touch plastic. You continue to have the piano black finish, which goes around the single vent effect. Looks pretty nice. We also have this faux carbon fiber trim around the cup holders and this shifter. Everything does feel still very solid in typical Honda fashion, and we'll go ahead and fire it up. All right, so let's dive into some individual features here. We'll begin with the gauge cluster as always. So what we have is a 7-inch partially digital gauge cluster. So this left-hand side, like many other Hondas, is the section that's reconfigurable. The right-hand side is always going to be your speedometer. And as you can see, that's where you can make some changes if you need to. And then as we pull back to the steering wheel, we've got the leather wrap steering wheel that begins here on the sport trim level. Nice gloss black accents as well. It looks premium, feels premium in the hand, and it's manual, tilt, and telescopic. Now, Civic is always really nailed interior storage. Let's check that out. So inside our center console here, you're going to notice it's loaded down with donuts. That's because at Car Confections, we like to do something called the donut test. This is our emblem, and we see how many donuts fit inside of a console to check the volume. In this case, the volume is going to be 13 donuts, which is extremely impressive for a compact sedan. Corolla is nowhere close to that. Up in front of this, you've got your two cup holders. You have another nice pad here with a rubber lining. Some of your upper trims will come with a wireless phone charging pad in that area. Now, as far as the shifter, it's just a traditional style one. Pull back for drive. You do have paddle shifters on the steering wheel as well. And when we go into reverse, here's what our backup camera is going to look like. This is standard across all the grades of the Civic. However, you do get front and rear parking sensors on the loaded model. You've got 3 different views you can choose between, and you still retain having an electronic parking brake with brake hold on your sport trim level. Now, rising above here, all Civics will come with an automatic climate control setup. Nice, simple to use knobs and buttons. Your lower 2 trims will come with a single zone automatic setup. The Sport Hybrid and the Sport Touring Hybrid will come with dual zone automatic. Also, those 2 trims will come with heated seats, which you'll notice are missing from today's model. Now, let's rise above and talk about the audio system. This comes with an 8-speaker sound system, which is twice the number of speakers you get in the LX trim level, and we'll go ahead and give it a sample. Alright, I'm actually kind of impressed by this sound system. 8 speakers is a lot for the mid-level trim level, and it definitely sounds better than most things in this class. Alright, now let's talk about our screen here. So, you've got 2 different displays in the Civic lineup. However, almost every single version is going to get this 7-inch display, unless you get the fully loaded model, which comes with a 9-inch display. Now, I said unfortunately because this is obviously a very small system. It's also not a really Honda's latest software at all. This is kind of an old school where you have to actually use these physical buttons down here to go through your menus. And as you can see, it's extremely basic in its overall operation. Now, that being said, you do still have Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, but you have to plug in via the USB connection to make that work. It's going to be wireless on the 9-inch display. Now up above here, we have a manual dimming mirror. Your interior lighting is LED. You'll notice that this model does not have a sunroof. This is one of the things that you get if you upgrade to the Sport Hybrid.
So let's go ahead and take a look at the rear seat area of this Civic Sport. Now, when it comes to space, the Civic has always been really, really good. That's going to continue, of course. So we're looking at about 37 inches of leg room and about 37 inches of headroom. So really good space figures for this segment, like I mentioned. I'm 5'9" for reference. This seat is adjusted to Drew, who is 5'8". And we're looking at a very good 8 inches of knee room, so that's very, very impressive. Now, we also have room for my feet to slide up underneath the seat, and I do want to point out that these seats are nicely padded. They seem quite soft, even on this more basic trim level. Also on this more basic trim level, we do have a fold-down center armrest with 2 cup holders inside. I checked it out earlier. It does fit a Stanley water bottle as well. And then going over here, unfortunately, I have to tell you, no vents and no USB ports. That's something I definitely would have liked to have seen. At least USB ports on this sport trim level, not going to be available at all. Now, as far as the door trim is concerned, it's going to be a hard touch on the upper part. Also hard touch in the middle section. You do have a cloth armrest portion, and then you have a little bit of bottle storage as well. Now, walking up to the trunk, there's a button integrated under the lid, so you just press that and it'll open up. As far as the space is concerned, we're looking at 14.8 cubic feet for this sedan version. That's a very good space figure for anything in this segment. Do keep in mind, if you want more space, the Civic hatch will give you that, 24.5 cubic feet behind the second row for that one, so quite a bit more practical. Now, as far as this model, as you can see, the seats do actually fold, but they're going to fold in one piece, so it's just going to be a full seat folding mechanism right there. And then as far as the cargo length and width figures, we're looking at about 40 inches of overall length. As far as the cargo opening, about 38 inches at the bottom section, and cargo height, I'm going to go ahead and add in a little bit for that mat, so about 21 inches of height. Now, if I lift up the cargo floor, I will find a spare tire underneath. All right, guys, we're behind the wheel of the 2025 Honda Civic Sport. In this test drive, we're going to be discussing quite a few things, as you can see on the screen right now. We'll also be getting our sound level reading. But first, let's start with a hard acceleration.
All right, so there's an acceleration up to about 55 miles per hour. Obviously, we were going up a hill here and coming into a red light, so didn't quite make it to 60, but let's talk about what's under the hood again, just to refresh your memory from the spec dump. This being the Sport trim level, comes with the 2-liter 4-cylinder engine. It's naturally aspirated. They actually don't even offer that 1.5 turbo engine that they used to anymore for 2025. This is making 150 horsepower and 133 pound-feet of torque. So the interesting thing for 2025 is the fact that both of those figures are actually down from what they were in 2024, just slightly. You lost 8 horsepower and 5 pound-feet of torque. I mean, that's honestly, that's nothing you're going to notice, for sure. And it does have a reason, which is to give you better fuel economy, and we'll talk about that in a second.
Now, of course, the big news, though, for 2025 is that they're finally adding a hybrid model. Of course, that's available in the Sport Hybrid, hence the name, and the Sport Touring Hybrid trim levels. That's going to have a 2-liter 4-cylinder as well. You're going to have the 2-motor hybrid system. That makes 200 horsepower and 232 pound-feet of torque. Now, we have also driven that one. It's definitely going to have a bit spunkier of a feel than this traditional base powertrain. However, I think for most people, you're not going to mind it too much, especially if you're just kind of cruising around town and not doing super hard accelerations. This 2-liter engine, the standard Sport model, is perfectly fine.
Yeah, for sure. It feels actually quite good when you take off the line. It's got a good amount of punch immediately. It's not bad. Obviously, it's not going to be what you would call fast, but it's not bad.
Yeah.
Let's also talk, of course, about the other aspect of the powertrain, which is a continuously variable transmission, or CVT. Honda has tuned this to be a nice partner with the engine. It's good and responsive, so when you put your foot down, immediately it just goes ahead and matches that correct ratio to the amount of power that you need.
Yeah, the hybrids will have an eCVT-like transmission. All models are going to be routed to the ground via a front-wheel drive system. No all-wheel drive is offered on the Civic. They have not added that for the refresh, so be aware of that. And let's go ahead and quickly dive into fuel economy as well. So like Drew said, the fuel economy is improved by kind of reducing those horsepower figures down for this 2-liter engine. So we're now sitting at 31, 39, 34 miles per gallon combined. So not bad fuel economy at all with the sport model. The LX is actually going to be 36 mpg, and then the hybrid model still gets the best fuel economy despite having the most power in the lineup. So we're sitting at 49 mpg for that hybrid model. So really good numbers there, that's for sure.
So as they make that U-turn, that's a good place to just talk a little bit about dynamics. I don't think it's, the biggest focus necessarily when someone chooses a vehicle like this, but I am happy to say that, Honda takes some of that core DNA to their brand, that DNA that is in the Civic Type R, for example, and it really brings it down into their more mainstream products, such as this, Civic Sport. It's just a nice handling vehicle. It has a really refined feel when you go around corners. It doesn't have much body roll. They do a great job with the steering as well. It's got a lot more heft than most of the competition, and as you can see, you get a nice immediate response. It just really makes this more pleasurable to drive than pretty much anything else in the segment. Maybe the Mazda 3, but everything else, this is one of the very best.
And just kind of cruising along here, I just want to quickly mention ride quality as well. Even though it's one of the best, dynamically speaking, in the segment, I still think that we have a pretty good ride quality. Of course, you can feel some of those road imperfections as you can in pretty much everything else in the segment, but overall ride quality is not bad whatsoever. And these seats are going to be a little bit on the firmer side. Now, one of the other things we do in all of our reviews is get a sound level reading going 55 miles per hour to see how quiet the cabin is. So let's go ahead and get that. 60.4 decibels is what we are sitting at in this Civic Sport. That is definitely going to be a little bit on the louder side, but we don't have to sit here and guess. We can go to carconfections.com/sound level readings, and on our website we posted all the cars that we review on this channel. And indeed, that does place it at the louder end of the segment when it comes to sound level readings. I do want to point out, though, as you go up the trim structure, it definitely gets a lot better. When you choose the Sport and the more affordable Civics, I will say it does have a pretty loud cabin overall.
And of course, it's time to do our Slam Dunk and Airball for this model. Today, the Slam Dunk is going to be just the value. That really is the reason why the Sport is the best-selling trim level in the Civic lineup. The amount of extra things you get over the LX trim, the base model, is tremendous. Yeah. And the price isn't a big difference between those two.
Yeah, now, the one thing that we wish you got on the Civic Sport, and may I add also the Sport Hybrid, is the screen. We are not a fan of this 7-inch screen. It's just very basic. It doesn't even really have much of a software system in it at all. Yes, you can use CarPlay and Android Auto, but you will have to still plug it in. I really wish that Honda would just make that 9-inch screen standard on more of the trim levels. I would maybe understand if it was Sport Hybrid, but it's not on either one of those. It's just Sport Touring model, so that's something I'm a little disappointed by. Lastly here, when it comes to your warranty, I do want to point out you have a 3-year 36 basic, 5-year 60,000 mile powertrain. Honda also does complimentary maintenance, but for 2025 it has been reduced down to 1 year instead of the 2 years that it was for 2024. But now let's talk about price. That's really the whole point of this review, is what do you get for this more affordable sport trim level price? Well, I have to say, you get pretty good amount of equipment for the money. So as you can see, we have the 25 Civic Sport. 26,250 is going to be your starting point this year. Once you add in the destination and paint color, it's 27,800. Now, if you're interested in getting the Sport Hybrid model, that's going to start at 28,750, and the Sport Touring Hybrid tops out at 31,750. Now, if you'd like to buy a Honda Civic or any new vehicle, we would encourage you to go to carconfections.com/newcarquotes. Now, the reason you do that is because we have a tool on our website that will connect you with local car dealers in your area to get you the best price. It's also going to give you access to invoice pricing information, which is a great tool for dealership negotiation. If you'd like to take advantage of that, a link is provided in our video description, and we also have a pinned comment at the top of this video. But let's go ahead and go into resale and reliability. So let's talk about resale and reliability. First up, we'll talk about resale value. As an economics graduate myself, Drew and I took the time to develop what we think is a good estimate for this Honda Civic's potential resale value. We estimate that after 5 years and 60,000 miles, it'll be worth 64.8% of its original MSRP, and after 10 years and 120,000 miles, 34.3%. Now, it's worth noting that is actually the very best resale value percentage of any automaker that we've looked at in the sample, so that's really, really impressive. And also, the Honda Civic is one of the best resale value cars in the Honda lineup, so this is going to be a pretty good investment overall.
Now, we've also done the same for reliability by developing the Combined Reliability Index. So what this does is take into account several studies from trustworthy sources and it combines them in a way that paints a more holistic picture. In this regard, Honda is one of the very top rated brands, well above your industry average.
And if you'd like to learn more about our resale values as well as our reliability information, be sure to go to carconfections.com/resale and carconfections.com/reliability. Buying a new vehicle is a very big decision, so you want to make sure you're making a smart purchase, especially if you're cross-shopping between different vehicle brands. And guys, that's going to be it for our in-depth review of the 2025 Honda Civic Sport. If you enjoyed watching this video or found it helpful in your purchasing decisions, which we hope you did, we'd really appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button down below. By subscribing, you're going to help us to make more car reviews like this, and we can even make car reviews on specific trim levels, such as this Civic Sport. So please hit that subscribe button down below to help us out, and it's also going to help you out by notifying you on the latest car content. If you're already a part of our family, thank you so much for your continued support, and we'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.